Bellerin, Bellerin, Hector Bellerin.
In by Mustafi. Bellerin, brilliant! 2-2.
Hector Bellerin, Bellerin, Hector Bellerin. Na, 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 na. That's a song. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Good things come to those who wait. And we've been waiting very patiently. We've been good little boys and girls in the Arsenal fan world. And today we started to get some of our due rewards. Welcome to the latest episode of Saved by the Bellerin, the Arsenal football podcast here in the Sports Talk Line Network. I am Raphael, joining you from the United States. Full crew in today from London. To my left on your video screen is Sam. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, mate. Hope you're well today.
I am well. We have Freddie and Ryan connecting. We're in the act of bringing them in. They'll be with us momentarily, but let's jump right in. Okay, there is Freddie. Hello, Freddie.
Hey,
good to see
sorry,
you.
I'm late.
No problem. Ryan will be popping in any moment as well. All right, so let's talk about it. You know, we've lots of news, we've been in that holding pattern, waiting. We've been telling you it's inevitable, it's going to happen, and today it started to happen. This morning, Arsenal announced officially that Gabriel Magalhaes is the latest member of the Gunners. Freddie, I know you're kind of prepping, but I'm going to bring you right in. You posted an interview with his agent several days ago explaining how Arsenal was able to get at the front of this process and ultimately become Gabriel's destination. I think now that it's official, you can kind of expand on that a little bit. He was very flattering about the club, the fans, the whole process.
Yeah, I think obviously part of what he's come out and said today is that the fans played a big part in him joining, and that he was reading a lot of the messages and stuff, which I'm sure is true. Part of that's a PR exercise as well, of course. You know, it's a nice thing for the fan to hear him say. Good way for him to endear himself to the fan base. But ultimately, yeah, it was the discussions with Edu and then Arteta, which convinced him of the project of the club and made him feel like it was the right place for him to come. So Edu initiated all of that. Obviously, there was the Brazilian connection there. We had confirmed the signing of Willian by that point. We have David Luiz at the club. We've got Martinelli at the club and so on. So there's that nice Brazilian connection. I'm sure he used that, you know, as a way to say, look, you'll find it easy to settle here. There's people that can help you settle. And obviously Edu has a great vision for the club. He's a very charismatic guy, as I mentioned last time I was on here. And he's obviously able to sell his vision well because Gabriel and his team were really impressed. They turned down offers that were much more financially lucrative to come to Arsenal. And then obviously it's well documented that Arteta got personally involved as well. You know, spoke to him over the phone, really involved himself heavily in the discussions to further Edu's message and tell Gabriel basically what his plans are for the team, how much he admires him as a player. And obviously the mix of those two things convinced him that this was the right place for him to be. And obviously I couldn't be happier that he's decided to join us over other clubs.
And we're learning more and more that in addition to Edu, Mikel Arteta is got a real pull on the phone, and obviously the results on the pitch don't hurt one bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously a very young, ambitious coach. I think some people may have had their doubts at first. Obviously, everyone was saying, look, he's like the second coming of Pep. He's had a great education as a player and then as a coach under the likes of Wenger and Guardiola. But so people were excited, but maybe had to, and rightly so, probably had to wait to see him in action as a manager to see what he was really about. But I think the way he's conducted himself off the pitch, the way he's endeared himself to the fans, said all the right things, he's come across so well. He's handled high-profile issues really well, really strong leadership, and I think he's shown that he is the sort of coach that not only can get a team playing good football, that's only half the problem. It's leading a massive club like Arsenal is a completely different kettle of fish to most jobs. So, and he's really shown that he's got the tools to do that. So players will be excited to play under him for sure because he's shown he can improve players. And I know the fans, myself included, are all excited for what the future holds because I think he's really proven himself so far.
One last point or one last question before kind of we move on, because we've talked about his tactical new, right? That he's able to improve the club. We've talked about his man management. He's able to take young players and get them going forward. But and we saw it with Saka. We've seen it with Ainsley Maitland-Niles. We've seen it with the younger clubs. We've seen it with guys like Xhaka, who are older, who have kind of been reborn under him. But going out into the market, I do wonder, Gabriel's 22 years old. And I wonder if this is a place where Mikel's age kind of works to his benefit, that younger players actually feel more comfortable with him. That's just one of the another selling point that maybe we didn't count on that really benefits Arsenal in this window and in subsequent ones.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't look too much into Mikel's age as being a factor that could attract younger players to the club, because there's still an age gap, and there's an argument to say that a lot of players prefer to play for proven, experienced managers. We all know the pull that someone like Arsene Wenger had, for example. And so you could look at it both ways. But I think one thing that you could say about Arteta in relation to his age is that he's obviously got a lot more progression to come. And he's already shown that he's at a good level now. So a player will look at that and think, wow, if this guy's got this team playing like this now, he's got such a long career ahead of him. He could be there for a long time. And this could really be a project that I could be a part of with that and grow with that. So there is that. And I think that's definitely attractive to young players.
All right. I want to welcome Ryan to the program. A little technical difficulties, but we've got him on board. Welcome, sir. Good to have you. We'll get to you in just a moment. Sam, let's move to you. Gabriel announced today, again, one of these moves that's just been holding. Another that we expected or that we hoped, we presumed was going to happen, now is all but official, and that is that Dani Ceballos is back for another year on loan with the club. Talk about the short-term benefits of that. Talk about, does Arsenal look to him, should they look to him, in your opinion, as a longer-term solution as well?
Well, short term, it's something that's going to benefit the club, because we know that he can hit the ground running. Since the restart, he is first in every single aspect in the midfield battle and midfield statistics for us. So he provides us with a defensive stability. He is able to get us out of danger. He's able to keep the ball moving quite quickly in that midfield, which at the moment is really, really needed for us, because our midfield ball progression could be a bit slow with El Neni in there alongside Xhaka. But ultimately, it's great for him to come back for another year, because Mikel knows what he wants from him. Dani Ceballos wants to get into the Spain 2021 team. So longer term, there was a report from Kik Marin. He's a bit hit and miss, but he's saying something along the lines of we could get a £20 million Euro deal done. If that is the case, I'd just say to Real Madrid, there's the money for him. Thank you very much. Because I think long term, if he was to stay beyond this season, he'll be fantastic, because he's only going to get better with age. So
one of these players who had a real jump. We talked about pre-COVID versus post-COVID. Of course, it's easy to forget that he was injured for a good part of the middle of the season. At the end of the Emery period, he was on the bench, came back right around the time that Mikel took over, was a bit rusty. But, after the COVID break, he and Xhaka really found a fit. And I'd say the last half dozen games, he was as valuable to the club as anybody, with maybe the exception of Aubameyang.
Yeah, I think the reason for that being is because there's a clear game plan from Mikel Arteta for him. And obviously going through Unai Emery, there was a game plan of sorts. But again, players wasn't enjoying themselves under Unai. Now, Mikel needed a bit of time to come in, work out the players, work out the first 11 that he wanted. Formation as well. We settled on that. And obviously the game plan, Danny knowing exactly what he needed to do, and he's thriving. One thing I do want to just move away from your question and mention is Connor Armstrong, who is the Arsenal social media producer and media content. I want to give big props to them because obviously a lot of Arsenal fans with the Gabriel announcement getting a bit impatient. I saw online there's a petition to get him sacked from his job. For me, that was sickening because at the end of the day, he can only do what the club ask him to do. So with what they done as well, I thought that was really personal. I thought it was brilliant, especially in the situation where we are at the moment. So for me, I've really got to give props to him and the team to doing quite a fantastic announcement around Gabriel today.
And it seems, again, if we look at the timeline, we've been speculating because we've been operating in a semi-vacuum. But if you look at the timelines, Gabriel was introduced, and this is something I think Freddie alluded to in one of the last pods, as soon as his quarantine ended, right? There was a logical explanation for all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously the team's done a fantastic job. So hopefully people can bear with them for any future announcements and just understand that we're not in normal times and things unfortunately do take a bit of time to get in place, but ultimately it was something a bit different and quite a lot of people liked it. So yeah, good job to them.
All right, let's bring you in, Ryan. Again, welcome to the show. Another reason it was very important to bring Dani Ceballos back is that he, again, as we mentioned, and Xhaka had formed a partnership, and with people like Lucas Torreira seemingly on the way out, it seems like Mohamed Elneny is probably going to be leaving in very short order. We were talking about this. The midfield is very thin. Obviously, they have big name targets that they're looking at. Houssem Aouar, Thomas Partey. You know, there's our weekly mention of him. So they needed some stability. They needed some numbers. They have that. But let's turn to Aouar. Just a rumor, just maybe an hour or two old, that it looks like he will be leaving Lyon. And I believe the functional line was he's going somewhere and it should be sorted shortly. Any hints in there of who that mystery club or clubs might be?
No, but I read a follow-up tweet from the same journalist that said he doesn't know if Arsenal could put together a bid for Aouar because of Ozil still being on the books, and he doesn't know if the player would be interested in a project like Arsenal. He's more interested in Juve or City, which to me that's nonsense anyway, because there's no more exciting project in the world than playing for Arsenal. But obviously I'm going to say that because I'm biased. But
City also are looking at some Messi guy, right?
Yeah, I've never heard of him before. So I don't know who that is.
Right.
But yeah, I can't see City spending 70 million on Koulibaly, potentially signing Messi and then going for Aouar as well. Juve trying to palm off their cast-offs to us for Lacazette previously, so I can't see them giving Lyon what they want in there because they want money straightforward for him. So realistically, the chances of them not trying to sign him over us aren't as high as people may seem to think they are.
Well, to follow up on that, we know that Arsenal made an official bid for him, right? And for all we know, for all the chatter in the Italian press, that Juve are interested in him, that they like him, there are other clubs that might be eyeing Houssem Aouar. It seems that the only concrete interest that we can verify thus far, it doesn't mean anything, but the only team that's really put their cards on on the table thus far and said, we want you, is Arsenal.
Yeah. Well, supposedly Arsenal, reportedly, I should say. That what was the offer? Quinn Doozy and money for him.
Yes, that was the initial offer. Yeah. Apparently, it's kickback.
They rejected it because they wanted just cash. I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're the only one that's made a concrete approach for him. So there's no reason for us not to be on in the running for him anyway. I think all this he won't like to go to Arsenal. It's all nonsense. It's just paper filling again.
All right, Freddie, let's bring you back because there's another rumor. Again, this is a player of interest. Arsenal fans have been talking about him. We talked about him a lot in the spring. His name is kind of dropped off the radar with all the attention on the midfielders. But Celtic crashed out of the Champions League qualifiers last week, which is for a club of their size. They're a big club, but still they're not. They don't have the resources of, say, a Man City or a Man United or a club, the bigger clubs in the Prem. That was a key source of revenue for them that they lost before their season campaign even starts. So what we're hearing now, Arsenal is again linked with their striker Odsonne Edouard. Some chatter today actually linking the two parties, saying Arsenal is interested in him and that Celtic may have to offer him for a cut price. Have you heard any more on this, or you have anything else besides that chatter that you can share with everybody here?
No, not really. I think it's no secret that there's a lot of clubs that are interested in him. I also think that Arteta is quite interested in the potential of having a sort of target man style striker to offer us something different, because we really don't have that outlet at the moment, something that we could really benefit from, because obviously we have Aubameyang, who can play through the middle, although he's scoring a lot of goals from out wide. We've got Martinelli, who is playing as a winger, but also has shown a lot of promise as a centre forward, so his future is a little bit unclear. We have those kind of dynamic centre forward options, but no one that offers the sort of thing that Edouard does. So I could definitely imagine Arsenal being interested, but I think it's one of those that nothing's going to happen until, for example, Lacazette moves on. I expect to see more movement on that soon, because obviously Arteta made no secret of it a few months ago, saying something needs to happen with Lacazette this summer. Either he extends his contract or he leaves. Otherwise, we're going to be ending up in the same situation as we were before, where with so many players where they're going into the latter years of their contract. So if, for example, Arsenal use Lacazette as a make weight in another deal, or sell him to raise some money to put towards other transfers, maybe then we could start thinking about another centre forward with the profile of someone like Edouard coming in.
Okay, Sam, I'm going to take that topic and bring it up to you, because let's talk about Alexandre Lacazette. A lot of chatter in the major Spanish dailies over the last week. I think Sport has had at least two pieces identifying, it's almost like they're ghostwritten by Atletico Madrid PR, but they've identified Alexandre Lacazette as the ideal striker target. They point out that Atletico has this rich history of strikers that they've had in the early 2000s. And then, the last couple of years, kind of the well has gone dry. One of the pieces pointed out, they had the worst scoring record of any team that qualified for European football. And apparently Diego Simeone, their manager, likes Alexandre Lacazette. Obviously, Atletico went for him when he came to Arsenal. I mean, every Arsenal fan is looking at this and saying, well, swap for Thomas Partey, right? Apparently, that's not Atletico's thinking. They would rather have other players. They want him, but they don't want to give up Thomas Partey to get him. Are we seeing gamesmanship here between the clubs? Is this one reason why that those names and those players just seem to be stuck at the moment?
Yeah, I believe so. I think it's a case of who will blink first in terms of what happens, because obviously, like I said, Ali come back, I think it was today, back to training. So obviously talk's going to happen with him in the club within the next couple of days, I believe. With Atletico, we've also got to consider, as we've discussed previously, they've got the government scheme over there. So as their one of the CEOs come out and said that their spending is going to be really limited. There's reports of them going also for Mark Rocker, really dropped price. So I think it's something along the lines of 12 million euros.
I think, yeah.
So if that is the case, he's a replacement for Partey. There's no two ways about that. So they're already pre-planning his his departure. In all likeliness, I think a swap benefits them a lot more because they can then potentially invest whatever money they have got elsewhere. But if we was to activate Thomas's release clause and they was to then receive that money, I think they can only spend 25% of that. So realistically, would they then be able to even afford Lacazette? I'm not too sure on that. But yeah, I think ultimately it will end up in the swap deal. It's just a case of getting a bit further down the line in terms of the transfer market when things really start to get moving. But it's definitely one to keep an eye on and one I can definitely see happening.
All right. So, Ryan, let's bring you back. Again, a lot of names that we've talked about as being outgoings, and I've got a long list here. It is at least a half a dozen players who we can pretty much confirm now are moving out. But, you know, I'm going to kind of throw a curveball at you. Sam and I were talking on the weekend of how, you know, if you look at what the team was doing, whether it's what the team was saying, you know, everybody was parsing very carefully Mikel's term of if you can get back on the boat, you're welcome on it. And we were saying, okay, it seemed to be aimed at Matteo Guendouzi. And we said, a lot of people said, well, that could be also aimed at Mesut Ozil. And Sam and I were pondering after the cup match. He's not even in England. Where is he? Then word comes today, he's back in training with the club. What do we make of that? Have we, you know, or was I guilty of jumping the gun? You know, I may have been. Or is this just a matter of Arsenal is just playing it by the book and playing their transfer cards or their keep where the cards with him real close to the vest?
Is that Ozil or Guendouzi?
Ozil, sorry.
Ozil. Yeah, it's a tough one because there was reports that he'd been given a massive offer from Saudi Arabia, but he has no intentions of leaving London. And I think it says a lot about the way Arsenal see Mesut Ozil. Is 7-year anniversary today that he signed for Arsenal, and the club haven't said anything. But he tweeted out that I would do it all over again, blah 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 blah. But the club haven't said anything, and I think that just shows how people at Arsenal see Ozil now. Someone that's just, I don't know, it's strange because he's such a talented player on his day, and as people have said before me, how many days of Ozil do you see? So I don't know, because trying to shift him is going to be difficult because if no one's going to want to leave on the wages. He's getting paid to do nothing other than train every day, and no one's going to really want to offer that to him in countries that he's going to want to go to. The top leagues, no one's going to pay a 32-year-old Mesut Ozil £350,000 a week. So I think Arsenal, I don't really know what to say. 'Cause it's a difficult one because obviously Arsenal would like to shift him. He doesn't want to leave. It's just a contract standoff. Well, I wouldn't even say contract. It's just a standoff at the moment. If I was Arteta and he's saying to me, I'm not going, I'm sitting on it, I'd play him every week. He's the best. He's the best we got in the number 10 position. So play him.
Well, I think it's a legitimate fear. We're seeing it in chat that a lot of fans are looking at outgoings, incomings, and would he block? Is his presence potentially blocking the addition of a player like Houssem Aouar? Is that a legitimate concern if you're a fan?
I want to say no, but I think it could be, especially for someone that, if we was to say try and get Coutinho on a permanent deal, his wages, if the club are going to look at the wages, he's on 240, Ozil's on 350. It's one or the other. And if we can't get rid of Ozil, we're not going to sign Coutinho, kind of thing. So I think them concerns are right. I think it'd be difficult to sign another big wage player while he's still here.
Okay, and that's definitely something to keep watch, because we know, as Freddie's brought up, Thomas Partey is looking at his big contract, and his contract demands are pretty substantial. Let's bring you back, Freddie, because let's talk about numbers. This is a numbers game, and I was saying it earlier. We have possibly 7 confirmed outgoings, loans or outright sales. We learned a couple of days ago, finally, that Mkhitaryan, his contract has been terminated. He is now a member of Roma. He's no longer on the Arsenal's books, which was a huge matter. Actually, I think he had Aubameyang's would supplant him, but at the time last year he had the second highest salary to Mesut Ozil, or the third highest. He was one of the top earners, and certainly not earning it. Socrates looks like I think that is all but done. He's going to Napoli for a smaller transfer fee that people expected, but at the same time, he's another top 10 earner who's off the books. El Neni, it appears, is on loan. Rob Holding is going to Newcastle on loan. A lot of chatter in the last couple of days. Sead Kolasinac appears to be going back to Schalke. I don't know if that's just a short-term loan or a loan with option or obligation to buy, but that's the 5th player. Lucas Torreira, we heard yesterday, Fiorentina made an offer for him early in the week, was rejected. Now they've come in with a bigger offer. That's 6. And then I'm going to ask you to top on a big one that really flourished in the last 24 hours, last 48 hours after the Community Shield, and that is the name of Hector Bellerin, who apparently is attracting a lot of attention from big clubs, PSG and Bayern Munich specifically. I'm going to have you start with Bellerin, and then maybe we'll talk about the numbers game in a second. But hot rumor, and there's a lot of discussion of the fan base. Like, if we sell him, a lot of people are in love with him, but they think he's a good player, a solid player. And if we sell him, who's gonna be the right back? There's a lot of misgivings about going a full season with Cedric in that position.
Yeah, are you asking me who I think is going to be the right back?
Well, also, is he going to go? And if he goes, who is the right back?
Well, first of all, is he going to go? I don't know. I think it's been reliably reported that those clubs are legitimately interested. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure that out anyway. There's a real shortage of quality fullbacks in general, really, in world football, but especially right backs at the moment. There aren't that many standout names in that position. He's somebody who's been playing at the top level, barring the injury problems, for quite a while. He's not been the Bellerin that we all know and love, but look, those teams will certainly be interested in him. Whether they can put a proposal together that will tempt him to leave the club, I don't know. He's got a manager that he respects greatly. I think Ryan touched upon it last week. He's a massive figure in the Arsenal dressing room. So it would really just depend on the sort of offer that's being put to him. But also, who will be the right back? Well, Cedric, look, he's a really good player, reliable player. I like him. But it also depends on Maitland-Niles. I think it's become quite clear that the club aren't going to push him to leave. They would prefer it if he would stay, but would understand that he wants to get first team football, regular week in, week out starting football every week. So they would allow him to leave, but only if Bellerin was going to stay. So I think if Bellerin made it clear he wanted to leave, Maitland-Niles would stay. And then I think, in my opinion, we still then have 2 good right backs in him and Cedric. So it's all like domino effect, like we often see in the transfer windows. If someone leaves, then other options are explored. So it really just depends, I guess, on whether Bellerin decides, one of these offers is the money that I want. It's the right time for me to leave England, and then the club will have to consider their next move.
Okay. Sam, let's go back to you. I'm going to kind of pick up where I started with Freddie. I didn't want to overwhelm him with numbers and questions, but I'm going to go through that list again. 7 players out. Let's assume Hector does go. Let's play that what-if game. Again, Mkhitaryan, Socrates, El Nene, Holding, Kolasinac, Torreira, and Hector. 7 out. Only 3 have come in so far, and one of them, Dani Ceballos, is on loan. We have Willian in, and we have Gabriel in. That seems to cry out. They're thin in the midfield. We talked about Aouar earlier. We talked about Thomas Partey. it's almost like the club is like thrown their cap over the fence, over the wall, and they're obligating themselves to go and chase it. They've got to fill those holes. This is a big season, short summer. They can't start it light, can they?
Quick answer is no. But ultimately, then you've got to think about some of the youth that could potentially fill holes if we get our main targets in place. They're more than likely play the majority of the games, and the youth coming in to be the squad fillers, so to speak. So people like Willock, Reece Nelson, Emil Smith Rowe is a big one that seems to be on everybody's lips at the moment. Yes, it's difficult because dependent on which way you look at it, some people are saying we've got to sell players before we get more players in. Some are saying that we've got money so we can get players in, but we want to sell because the squad's ultimately bloated right now. You're even looking at centre back at the moment. We've got 8 centre backs on the books, and that's before we even start looking at the rest of the squad. So I think we need to shift people so we don't get caught short in terms of squad registration, and then we move forward from there. But ultimately, I don't think that we can go through till say January light in midfield. We need to get a few more over the line, and then obviously if Lacazette goes, we need to bring in another striker, in my opinion.
All right, and we want to welcome. We've got a bump of people at the top of the hour. Welcome to Saved by the Bellerin. You've caught us mid conversation. We've gone over. Obviously, Gabriel has joined. That's official. Danny Ceballos is official. We're discussing, pondering who might, with the outgoings and the ingoings, who's next, who's not. As we said, 7 outgoing. Pretty much, Hector is uncertain right now, Ryan. But the other 6 are pretty well confirmed. And it looks like there's definitely 3 more that are going out, maybe a 4th. I'm thinking of Callum Chambers, Lacazette, as we mentioned earlier, Quinn Doozy. Ozil's back in practice. I don't know what his status is. And, Emi Martinez, seems the club wants him, but it also seems Leeds wants him. Several stories that they're monitoring the situation with him. He'd have a home there. He could be another player like Hector, where the club might want to keep him, but it may be too lucrative not to let him go. What do you think about him? We've talked about him before, but has anything changed in the last week?
No, I'm just going to echo what Freddie said a couple episodes ago. To build in a squad that you need quality everywhere, having 2 quality keepers that we have now, it just wouldn't make sense for us to sell Martinez and for cheap as well. For the reported prices, I don't think it's worth selling him now. And as Freddie said, you can't give assurances to the 2 goalkeepers. You train your best, and that's that. You do what you can to get in the starting 11. So I don't think we should sell him. I personally wouldn't. I think him and Leno can battle it out for the next season and see where we go next summer. Hopefully we can tie him down to a new contract, and then we have 2 top quality goalkeepers. And I just want to say a word about Callum Chambers. If Bellerin does leave, we do still have Callum Chambers who can play at right back, and he's a pretty good right back as well. Which then, if Magalhaes did want to leave as well, we could potentially keep Chambers, who's on his way back from his injury. So maybe a loan for him might be a better idea than selling him right now, or we can just keep him until January and see where we're at. So with him, it's a bit of a grey area because he's still coming back from his ACL. So, and the rest of them, yeah, I can see them leaving potentially this week, next week. Obviously, Ozil, as I said, he's probably not going to leave. Quinn Doozy is a tough one because we obviously value him at a a set price, which I don't think many other clubs see him as the same price. And that was I was saying on Twitter and in the group chat, it's all politics with Quinn Doozy of what Arteta said after the Charity Shield. I think you don't want a player losing value sitting on the sidelines. So if Arteta comes out and said, "Oh, he's in my plans, he's back on the boat," his value creeps back up a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if we hear that he's played in a friendly or he's on the bench at the start of the season. So it looks like he's back in the good books, and then suddenly he's shipped off to Valencia for a 40 million obligation.
Confirm for us, because again, we heard a lot of players that came back. Is Quinn Doozy back in training, or is he still one of those few guys who's on the outs?
I believe he's actually with the French under 21 squad, maybe under 21 or under 23. I believe he's with the French national team anyway. So he's training, just not with us.
All right. Hot news posted by Sam as he's monitoring the chat and monitoring everything. Freddie, I'm gonna let you pick at this. Apparently, PSG have come in with an official offer of 25 million. Is that euros, Sam, or is that pounds?
Pounds, apparently. 25
million pounds, 5 million pounds in add-ons for Hector Bellerin. Looks like an initial offer to my eyes. Is this something Arsenal should take seriously as a bargaining point? In your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they'll be assessing what options they've got at the club, what options they can explore in the market, and if they feel like, you know what, we could still be relatively strong at right back, and get a fee for a player that we can put towards, for example, activating Partey's release clause, then I think it's something the club should and would seriously consider. I don't want to see the back of Hector Bellerin. I think he's got a lot to offer, both on and off the pitch. But for sure, I think they should, they will be exploring their options and considering every bid that comes in very seriously. We know what times we're in at the moment, as Sam touched upon earlier. These are really strange times, different times, and maybe you would reject certain bids out of hand in normal times. But this is a time where finances have to be considered very carefully, and if you can increase your transfer kit, if you like, by selling a player that you think could be replaceable, then yeah, it has to be taken seriously.
Okay, Sam, I'm going to let you kind of bat at this because you brought it in off the wire. When we've been talking about a potential price in group for Bellerin, the price that the price point has been around 35 million pounds. This is not that far off that. Is that kind of a trigger price for you? And, Ryan in that last pod was putting up potential formations that Arsenal might play. And we were talking about moving away from three at the back. Are they are there formational options somewhat curtailed if they sell a guy like Hector Bellerin and they're not sure what they have aside from Cedric right now at the right back?
I don't believe so. Mason Maitland-Niles can, if he stays, he can stay at right back. He's performed well there in the past. Obviously, as you say, we've got Cedric. So even if it's right wing back or right back in terms of positional awareness, both of them are relatively good in that aspect. In terms of Bellerin, a guy that's been speaking in my DMs, which you can find him on Twitter, TL_Mason, has been saying that Hector Bellerin's been talking to PSG since May, more or less. So it's been a long way being discussed. So I think that barring final bids, Hector's more or less at PSG, because he said back in May that Bayern Munich were also another club that was being considered. Obviously, we got that news earlier on today. I think it's earlier on today or late last night. So it seems that PSG is going to be Hector's final destination. But in terms for us, I think that we're we're going to be looking at a potential another right back, because if Ainsley Maitland-Niles decides that he wants more first team options, then again he could go. But there's a lot of reports saying that we're doing a U-turn on that. I wouldn't be adverse to it, but if we were potentially to look at another right back, for me, I would seriously consider Max Aarons from Norwich, because I think that he's got a lot to offer and he's got bags of potential. And if you put him into a team that's going to be on the front foot, you're just going to see him flourish instead of a team that's going to be in a relegation battle. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out over the next week or so.
Okay. Again, we're kind of moving on. We've kind of touched on a lot of names, but a lot of movement, a burst in, a burst out, a burst in. Is this wave one, Ryan? Obviously, I think they're still looking at Partey, exploring that. Lacazette, again, those two names seem to be linked. It seems that they're in the mix for a war. Are we expecting a lull now? I mean, you can never tell with this club. It seems like they make us wait, and then in 24 hours, 4 players are out, 2 are in. So what's next? What do you look for from this squad?
I think it'll start picking up now, because all the players are slowly coming back from their holidays and all that kind of stuff. And you just never know with Arsenal. We've criticised them in previous years of selling before they can buy and losing out on a transfer target. But now with Gabriel, they've signed him, and we've still got all of the players we wanted to sell on the book still. So hopefully they can do that with the other targets, which I'm not sure they'll be able to because of the size of the fees and whatnot. But David Ornstein has literally just tweeted in the last 5 minutes that, or he's confirmed in the last 5 minutes that talks have happened with Lyon over a while, and that Arsenal really want to bring in Thomas Partey. He also confirmed that Arsenal are in talks with PSG about Bellerin. So a lot of things could happen in the next week or so. I think it'll be a lot will happen just before the season starts, because that's when Arteta's going to want a confirmed squad. He's going to want his squad for that game, I think. And I think it's about 13. I don't know how many days. I've lost count. But it's a week and a half or so until we play Fulham, which we are actually the opening game of the season, believe it or not.
So, Freddie, it's going to be encouraging for the fans. I mean, maybe not on the Hector side, but seeing that it looks like they're still very gung-ho about not – a lot of fans, we say, OR or Partey. You hear that kind of like Coke or Pepsi, or we say here, vanilla or chocolate, but it looks like they want both. They're stubborn and they say, this is what we need, this is what we want. But again, if you're an Arsenal fan, you love that. It shows intent. It also shows if they need to, while they're working these other players, if they're pursuing them, they have the means. I mean, I'm sure they'd rather sell first than buy, but if they need to buy first, it seems they can do that. As we said, they've created the space on their 25-man roster for that.
Yeah, I think it's a delicate balance. I wouldn't take it as like, oh, Arsenal can just go out and buy these players and that's it. Obviously, a club of Arsenal's size, they can do that, but it's about doing things sensibly. You don't want to leave yourselves in a position where, for example, if in the worst case scenario, fans start coming back to stadiums, and then the coronavirus thing gets even worse, and then everything takes another massive financial hit, and then you spent a load of money that you didn't really have, but anticipated that you were going to recoup. It's just not a good situation to be in. So I think in an ideal world, they will want to move more players on. I think, as you've touched upon, there's loads of players that look really likely to leave the club. So I think they're probably pursuing those players with that in mind, because they know they're going to be freeing up a lot more space on the wage bill. They will get a fee for quite a few of those players and space on the roster itself. So I think they're doing it with that in mind. I think also what it does show is that look, I think a lot of people, when they doubt that we could get Partey or Aouar in the same window, I think it's just people being naturally cautious. You know, I think as Arsenal fans, we've all learned not to be too overly optimistic in transfer windows.
Sure.
So I think what it does show, even if we did, for example, get Partey, who's obviously been a long-term target of the club, and not Aouar, what it does show is that Arsenal are in the market for that kind of player. So come the next transfer window or the one after that, if we still haven't got that sort of player, whether it be Aouar or someone else, we know what the club's sort of primary focus is going to be. And that's nice. That's nice as a supporter, and also from a journalistic point of view to know, because you can sort of identify players that they might be looking at and start to get excited about the vision that's there. It's a clear vision in terms of the players that we might be looking to bring in a team that they're looking to build. And that's nice to see from the outside.
All right. Again, we've just entered injury time and on the pod. We've gone 45 minutes with all of you. We thank you all for sticking with us. Quick, kind of a summary. Sam, will there be any more moves by the time that we come back in 48 hours? Things really seem to be picking up.
Yeah, in terms of moves, I don't think so. I'm hoping for Orba's announcement within the next 48 hours, but I think we'll definitely hear a lot more in terms of ins and outs, and definitely about what the plan is around players' futures.
All right, I ask you guys to go out on a limb. I think Sam just did in the short term. Ryan, Aouar, Partey, can they get one or can they get both, in your opinion? How much do you want to dream?
I have big dreams. I think Arsenal can get both, but I do think it'll depend on who leaves.
Okay, fair enough. Freddie, as you said, we can dream. We often pull those back. Should we? Should we allow ourselves? Should we indulge ourselves this window with the new manager?
Well, I think if anything, if the signing that we've made already is anything to go by in Gabriel, then yeah, why not? Why not get excited? Maybe not expect things, but there's plenty of reason to be excited. So yeah, why not?
All right. I'm going to let myself be cautiously optimistic again. I'm taking Freddie's advice, but again, we will be back in 2 days to assess where things have moved. Things are moving quickly, and I definitely expect more outgoings in the next week, the next 2-3 days, and maybe hear more about whether what their plans are for Quinn Doozy, what their plans are for Lacazette, and maybe even Mesut Ozil. Who knows? But we want to thank you all for joining us. We are growing. We really appreciate your support. We want to just point out to you, if you have not, hit that little, if you're following us on YouTube, hit that little subscriber button down at the bottom. Our numbers are really kind of exploding, and that's all that benefits our parent channel, Sports Talkline. It really benefits us here, and it helps us bring you more of these pods, more of the news, more guests, more of everything. So, and again, I want to mention we are planning a all-day, long form, wall-to-wall transfer day show on deadline day. And we'll be telling you more about that as it approaches. So anyway, any final words? Any of you have seen anything? You guys are just pulling stuff off the tickers. Has anything come off in the last 5 minutes while I've been yakking away? Or we just
not that I've seen. Only what's been mentioned, Bellerin, and that.
And that's plenty. And that's plenty to follow. So again, join us in 2 days, and we'll catch you all up on that. So anyway. For all of us here at Sports Talkline, for me, for Sam, for Ryan, for Freddie, good night. Come back, and we hope to have good Arsenal news for you then.
Cheers.